Millions, if not billions of people now believe that the world is under a bioweapons attack. A lot of blame has been placed on the U.S. funding of bioweapons. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the U.S. NIAID/NIH, has come under severe criticism for funding the infamous gain-of-function research. Many believe Fauci has not acted alone or even on his own accord. The author worked as a fellow at NIAID/NIH from 1988 to 1991, starting soon after Fauci became head of NIAID. The author witnessed first-hand infiltration of NIAID/NIH by Israel's Mossad. While working at NIAID/NIH, one or more co-workers expressed a need to preempt the next Jewish Holocaust. For 30 years since leaving NIH, the author has paid close attention to Mossad's involvement in illegal U.S. bioweapon activity and attempts to disclose his observations. The author hopes to educate the public on the current bioweapon attack with COVID-19 and vaccines. The author believes that Mossad intends to kill billions of people. Already 70% of the world's population have received a COVID-19 vaccine, which in all appearance has the ability to cause deadly non-curable prion disease. The author hopes the information provided will help those interested in ending this covert war. Introduction. Dr. Anthony Fauci announced he will retire from his position as director of NIAID/NIH in December of 2022. Fauci has come under criticism for funding research that could be used for bioweapons production, included the infamous gain-of-function research. Many have surmised that Dr. Fauci could not have acted alone. Dr. Fauci became director of NIAID around 1986, and the author started a 3-year fellowship at NIAID in 1988. The author worked in the Laboratory of Immunology, which was run by Dr. William A. Paul. Dr. Paul was considered a mentor to Fauci and a one-time senior administrator of NIAID under Fauci. While working at NIAID, the author realized that as of 1988, NIH had been highly infiltrated by Israel's Mossad. To the author's knowledge, the Mossad leader at NIH was Israeli national Zami Ben Sasson, who worked across the hallway from the author. Based on the author's observation from 1988 to present, Mossad has been using NIH for development of bioweapons on NIH campuses, funding bioweapons development at other locations, and training U.S. citizens to become bioweapons experts for Mossad. Israel never signed the 1972 Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention, and the author provides evidence to indicate Mossad, using U.S. human and material assets, is running a large genocidal bioweapons attack on the world. 2. The author's morbid assessment is made based on 30 years of following Mossad activities in the medical research field, starting in 1988 at NIAID/NIH. The scenario is based on the author's observation of Zami Ben Sasson, close personal colleagues of Dr. Ben Sasson at NIAID/NIH, and very suspicious activities of others who have worked at NIAID or elsewhere in the U.S. government. Confirmation of this illegal bioweapons activity is further supported by observations related to another well-known Mossad operative, blackmailer Jeffrey Epstein, and his contacts in the biomedical research industry. Mossad operative Jeffrey Epstein had strong ties in biomedical industry consistent with Mossad's desire to develop and use bioweapons as a means of mass destruction. Mossad is not interested in curing cancer or any disease. It does look for ways of killing people that resembles a natural death. Research on cancer inducers, prion, deadly viruses, toxic molds, immune suppressors, and vaccines that cause infertility have been linked to Mossad. Many have published on Epstein's blackmail operation, which he ran for Mossad using underaged girls, 1 to 5. Epstein's partner Ghislaine Maxwell also has extensive ties to Mossad. Maxwell's father, Bob Maxwell, has been widely regarded as a top Mossad operative who received a state funeral in Israel on his death. 6 to 8. Jeffrey Epstein kept a book of contacts that can best be described as a list of Mossad assets. The fact that Epstein decided to keep their contact information handy. Supports the obvious. Those listed in the book provided some assistance to him. Some listed in the book, including Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Michael Bloomberg, are linked to activities that relate to COVID-19 as discussed below. The Epstein address book and the accompanying flight log have been published in their entirety online 9/10.
Niait ni 1988 hingga 1991.
The author started a 3 fellowship at NIID/NIH in Bethesda, Maryland in July of 1988. He worked in the Laboratory of Immunology, led by Dr. William E. Paul. Dr. Paul had recently returned to the lab after taking a short hiatus to be a senior administrator of NIID for Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Paul had been at NIID for a long time and was considered a mentor to his younger Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Fauci's activities are discussed below. 11. It was in the Laboratory of Immunology NIID that the author worked across the hall and got to know Israeli national Dr. Zami Ben-Sasson. On the U.S. holiday President's Day of 1991, the Laboratory of Immunology was initially almost empty except for the author and Dr. Zami Ben-Sasson. Upon entering the lab's corridor and upon seeing Dr. Ben-Sasson standing at the opposite end of the hall, Dr. Marshall Plott shouted, "Hey Zami, I heard you work for Mossad." Dr. Ben-Sasson could be heard frantically running down the hall to meet Dr. Plott. Outside of the author's door but hidden from sight, the author heard Dr. Ben-Sasson tell Dr. Plott 3 times that he must not reveal to anyone Dr. Ben-Sasson's link to Mossad. Dr. Ben-Sasson worked directly under Dr. Paul as a foreign scientist. Typically grants provided NIH training for foreign citizens for a few years. The scientist lives in the U.S. for 3 several years, traveling home on short vacations. Dr. Ben-Sasson's tenure was unique. At the time, he stayed in the U.S. for several months, then returned to Israel for several months. He kept up this cycle for duration. The author was at NIID. There were other Israeli nationals working at NIH at the time, but the interactions observed by the author lead the author to believe Dr. Ben-Sasson was senior to them. Based on observations and conversations with Dr. Ben-Sasson, the author has formulated the following points. Dr. Ben-Sasson's identity as a Mossad operative was known at NIID among many Jewish scientists of U.S. citizenship. In 1991, Dr. Plott worked in a non-tenured position, having recently left Johns Hopkins University. Dr. Plott was an outsider of sorts and was late in hearing office gossip. Someone had told Dr. Plott of Dr. Ben-Sasson's Mossad connection, so multiple people must have known. Dr. Ben-Sasson was treated like a Mossad boss at NIH. Dr. Ben-Sasson appeared to be given a carte blanche in the Laboratory of Immunology when it came to receiving precious handmade reagents, monoclonal antibodies and the like. Typically, these reagents took months to manufacture and would be given in small amounts under special circumstances. Researchers' willingness to help Dr. Ben-Sasson was not limited to the Laboratory of Immunology. Dr. Ben-Sasson was frequently seen, much more than normal, walking about the large NIH Building 10, returning to our lab with a cup full of dry ice and test tubes. Dr. Ben-Sasson would often be in a rush home to meet his roommate before his roommate went to work. Dr. Ben-Sasson's roommate worked at the Israeli embassy at night and was Dr. Ben-Sasson's daily link to the Israeli embassy. During the time frame the author was at NIID, 1988 to 1991, the Cold War was ending. The Berlin Wall fell, and Germany was reunited. There was talk in the Laboratory of Immunology that with the unification of Germany there would be another Jewish Holocaust. There was open talk about the need to preempt the next Jewish Holocaust. It is the author's belief that this is a major motivator for the bioweapons activity at NIAID. As discussed below, Mossad, Dr. Fauci, and the anthrax attack. In 1999, there were several congressional hearings on vaccine adverse events. The author was an expert for both a hearing on the hepatitis B vaccine run by Representative John Mica, and a later hearing on the anthrax vaccine run by Representative Dan Burton. The Burton hearing held on October 12, 1999 on the anthrax vaccine was entitled, Defense Vaccines, Force Protection or False Security. 12 in that hearing Representative Henry Waxman, an U.S. congressman and Israeli citizen, 13, advocated giving the anthrax vaccine because of the threat of a future terrorist attack. Mr. Waxman. And what we're talking about is a vaccine that can, we would hope, be able to counter a terrorist activity. Waxman debated the author in an attempt defended the safety of the anthrax vaccine. Waxman cited information provided by Dr. Regina Rabinovich, who worked at Mossad-infiltrated NIAID. Rabinovich would eventually leave NIAID and later held a position as director of the infectious disease program at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates is famously associated with Mossad operative and blackmailer Jeffrey Epstein. 14. 2. For years after the Burton hearing, Waxman's prediction of an anthrax attack occurred. The attack occurred starting 1 week after the airplane attacks on September 11, 2001. Envelopes filled with anthrax were sent to several high-profile people. The envelopes contained letters incriminating Muslims for the attack. After the attack, Dr. Anthony Fauci went to Congress and presented at a congressional hearing officiated in part by U.S. Congressman and Israeli citizen Henry Waxman entitled Biological Warfare, Defense Vaccine Research and Development Program, October 23, 2001, 15. The outcome of the hearing was Fauci raised billions of dollars for bioweapon defense to be conducted at his Mossad-infiltrated NIAID. According to the Wall Street Journal, 16 NIAID's annual budget for bioweapon research went from $42 million a year in 2001 prior to the anthrax attack to $1.2 billion in 2003 and $1.7 billion in 2005. In 2008, the FBI investigation determined that the anthrax in the envelopes likely originated at the U.S. bioweapons facility, Fort Detrick. A Zionist named Bruce Ivins, 1718, was implicated in the U.S. anthrax attack, but died from alleged suicide before a confession was ever obtained. Ivins, in a letter he wrote, proclaimed, "By blood and faith, Jews are God's chosen, and have no need for dialogue with any Gentile." 19. The FBI agent in charge of investigating the attack, Richard Lee Lambert, complained that higher-ups at the FBI had tried to hinder his investigation and prematurely closed the case just as they began to make progress. Lambert filed an Tam suit 20 against senior U.S. officials, including Attorney General Eric Holder and Robert Mueller III, and described the actions that impeded his efforts to bring those responsible to justice. The author notes that while Fort Detrick is partially military bioweapons base, it also contains a large NIH campus. During the author's fellowship at NIAID/NIH in Bethesda, Maryland, there were frequent interactions between scientists at the main NIH campus in Bethesda and the satellite facility at Fort Detrick, less than a 45-minute drive away. Graduating fellows from the Bethesda campus obtained jobs at the Fort Detrick campus. Mossad assets in Bethesda had clear access to the scientists working at Fort Detrick. The link between Dr. Anthony Fauci/NIAID and Mossad has not gone unnoticed by others. Many have commented on the link between Dr. Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates. Bill Gates was a close associate of Mossad operative Jeffrey Epstein. 14. According to a report 11, Dr. Anthony Fauci was appointed to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Global Grand Challenges Scientific Advisory Board, served through 2010. Dr. Fauci was on the Leadership Council of the Bill and Melinda Gates Global Vaccine Action Plan, 11. Furthermore, Dr. Fauci has been on the World Health Organization's Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, 11. The WHO receives substantial money from the Bill Gates through his foundation as discussed below. SARS, MERS, and COVID development, due to the greatly enhanced bioweapon defense budget obtained by Mossad. Infiltrated NIAID/NIH after the Fort Detrick lead anthrax attack on U.S. citizens. NIAID had resources to fund extensive bioweapon research.
Coronavirus, IE, SARS, avian flu.
Smallpox and Ebola were specific bioweapon-related infectious agents targeted by federal funds after the Fort Detrick-linked attack on U.S. citizens. 21. However, NIH had 5. Been funding similar work prior to this in a smaller scale. 16. SARS was the first to threaten the health of the world population after the U.S. anthrax attack of 2001. The SARS outbreak occurred in 2002 in China. Dr. David E. Martin compiled a list of alleged bioweapons violations on Mossad-infiltrated NIAID/NIH. In Martin's publication 11, he provides the following introduction. Over the past 2 decades, my company MCAM has been monitoring possible violations of the 1925 Protocol for the Prohibition of the Use in War of asphyxiating, poisonous, or other gases, and of bacteriological methods of warfare, the Geneva Protocol 1972 Convention on the Prohibition of the Development, Production, and Stockpiling of Bacteriological and Toxin Weapons and their Destruction, the BTWC. Martin elaborated on the NIAID/NIH funding of the infamous Barrick research. On April 19, 2002, the spring before the first SARS outbreak. In Asia, Christopher M. Curtis, Boyd Yount, and Ralph Barrick filed an application for U.S. Patent 7,279,372 for a method of producing recombinant coronavirus. In the first public record of the claims, they sought to patent a means of producing an infectious, replication-defective coronavirus. This work was supported by the NIH grant referenced above and GM 63228. In short, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services was involved in the funding of amplifying the infectious nature of coronavirus. Between 1999 and 2002, before SARS was ever detected in humans, Dr. Barrick's expertise was understanding how to modify components of the coronavirus associated with cardiomyopathy. NIAID grants AI 23946 and GM 63228, leading to patent US 7,279,327 methods for producing recombinant coronavirus, was the NIH's first gain-of-function GOF project in which Dr. Barrick created an infectious, replication-defective clone of recombinant coronavirus. This work clearly defined a means of making a natural pathogen more harmful to humans by manipulating the spike protein and other receptor targets. A year after filing a patent on this GOF-COV, the world experienced the first outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS. One key facet of the Mossad-infiltrated NIAID/NIH research was developing a defense to a weaponized coronavirus. Research included using measles vaccine virus as protection against these deadly coronaviruses. 22. This is an important fact given the widespread measles vaccination in Israel and Jewish schools in the U.S. in 2018 prior to onset of COVID-19. 23 as discussed below. Swine flu, Mossad's trial run for COVID-19.